Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I am every Thursday to get thirsty to talk the wonderful, wacky world of professional wrestling. It's our very good friend, Paul Pratt, a.k.a. Pollo Del Mar. Paul, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Oh, it's always good to be back. And, man, it's an exciting time to be here, too, because I've got a guest, but I also have so much exciting things coming up, and we got a lot to talk about.
Oh, tons of stuff to talk about here. We had breaking news within just the last 90 minutes that, of course, we're going to get to here in just a second. We want you all to be a part of the show here as well, much like our friend Andrew Cormos here, who says good afternoon. Jump in, just say hi, or let us know what you think of the big news of the day. Before we get into all the news and stuff here, I just wanted to take a moment to call out the global elephant in the room. Obviously, our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine today. It is a very scary situation over there right now, and I know we have listeners all over the world, and if this show brings you any joy or any reprieve at all, I'm happy to help. But of course, there are bigger things going on right now, and just genuinely want to send out our whole heart and our best to the people of Ukraine in this very, very difficult time, you know?
Yeah, it's a scary time and a crazy time. And my thoughts go out to people of Ukraine and all of the surrounding areas, because it's such a global impact.
Yes, we are walking on the edge of a knife these days, and absolutely, Poland, Romania, all everybody in the Eastern Europe right now, absolutely sending our best out to you right now. Very difficult time. This is not a politics podcast; it is a pro wrestling podcast. So we're going to try to shift gears here, look at the big top pro wrestling news stories here from the past 24 hours. Later on, we're going to dive to the mailbag, and we're going to talk about one of those top news items, because we're going to look at who you'd most like to see Cesaro feud with at AEW, which will bring us right into news you can use, news that will leave a bruise. This came first from PW Insider, was later reported on by Fightful as well. Cesaro has left the WWE. He signed a one-year deal a year ago, which actually we were the first to exclusively report over at Wrestling Inc. The backstage reaction generally across both reports seems to be that of disappointment. The two sides simply just couldn't come to terms, whether it be on money or other accommodations that Cesaro wanted. Since he just let his contract run out, he is not under a non-compete. Cesaro can show up anywhere at any time right now, AEW or otherwise. What do you think of this rather large revelation here from the past 90 minutes?
Man, as soon as I heard this, I got very excited. I got extraordinarily excited. The reason being that, first and foremost, I love Cesaro. I really, really enjoy watching him as an in-ring performer. And when he has been developed by WWE, I've enjoyed what they've done with him. I think that for the most part, what we've seen from Cesaro in WWE up until this point has clearly displayed that they have only a certain degree of interest in his development, and they've taken him as far as they're going to. We saw, him move into that world title picture, or the universal title picture, about a year ago at this time. And I think that was the most they were going to do with him. And once they elevated him, they dropped him right back down to where he had been previously. So even when he signed his year extension, that was my concern, that they would elevate him, heat him up for a moment, and then put him right back where they'd found him. That seemed to be the case. So for me, Cesaro being able to exit WWE is just a tremendous stroke of luck for him. And I'm optimistic that we'll see from him things like what we have seen from Matt Cardona, which is a complete rebirth of his character and an explosion of success and popularity outside of WWE.
Yeah, I agree. And he has the prototypical kind of talent that excels outside of the WWE model. Now, again, you're making a lot of money in that WWE model. I'm sure, especially for a guy that had been there over a decade, he was doing quite nicely. It seems like they were making a pretty good offer to keep him. Jay Henry here saying, though, WWE threw big money at Zayn, Owens, and Styles. Also, Cody's now coming into the picture. Maybe they weren't willing to pay him what he deserved. It is, maybe there's a little bit of ego there as you see some people around, sure. But I think that a lot of this kind of stems from the fact that he's got a lot of money and there's only so many years left on his bump card. and where does he really want to spend them and how. Very, very similar to the Bryan Danielson situation, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think that Cesaro is somebody with certain professional wrestlers. I think that if they're looking at it strictly from the perspective of a financial investment in their future, what the way they want to, spend their waning years of their career, however that is, if they want financial security. But I've personally, outside of the world of professional wrestling, been in situations where financially things were really good, but I was so unfulfilled and I wanted to do more. And I think that when you are somebody who is a high level competitor and somebody who loves to be a professional wrestler, it became clear that Cesaro is not a sports entertainer. He's a professional wrestler. And there has to be something nagging in the back of people like that's mind when they see other people getting to do what they love to do, and they recognize that they're just going through the motions and picking up a paycheck while their time to do that is starting to slowly tick away.
Yeah, I'll read some other feedback here. Scott Allen swearing, saying, dude, Cesaro was, is, and will always be a jobber. Don't get me wrong. Great wrestler, but cannot talk at all on the mic. Bottom line, always is, can't talk on the mic. Down you go.
So that is why there are managers in the world of professional wrestling. That is why somebody like Brock Lesnar was able to come in and decimate his opponents for a decade with Paul Heyman doing the talking.
They literally had Heyman and Cesaro together at one point, though. Right?
Yes. And Cesaro is someone, and I don't disagree with you. I think that he lacks an element of charisma when it comes to his promos, but he is a professional wrestling machine. And if you put him with somebody who can do that talking for him and allow him to operate at what he is, which is an outstanding technical and professional wrestler, that man has the sky as the limit.
Yeah, and you look at the main event of last night's Dynamite. Bryan Danielson, Daniel Garcia. The big knock on Bryan for a long time was he couldn't talk. He really found his voice. I think he's arguably one of the best talkers in the game now. Daniel Garcia, not quite there, though, but this guy has been in a lot of prominent positions. This guy has put in some great matches, doesn't really say a whole lot. In fact, when he does talk, I think that's when his aura kind of goes away a little bit. That doesn't mean that he's not a very impactful performer, though, right? And I think yeah. Or are you not a fan of Garcia?
No. I am a fan of Garcia, but Garcia doesn't even, the crazy part about this whole thing, talking about Garcia is losing on an almost consistent basis on television and yet rising up the card because his credibility factor is going through the roof. Right. As people see him, that he's elevating and moving forward each and every step of the way, so that when they get ready to pull that trigger on him, he has the credibility factor that will allow them to switch him from losing to main event stars every week to beginning to beat those mid-card people, moving himself into that main event picture.
Well, we're going to talk about who from AEW people would like to see Cesaro feud with in the mailbag, but in general, the leap to AEW, right? This guy is the kind of guy that does fall in the category of people Tony Khan loves, right? Technical worker, the kind of guy that could win a bola, right? Fan favorite, a lot of sympathy coming off of the E right now. I obviously feels like a layup, but man, last night, spoiler alert, we had Buddy Matthews showing up. He's now in the picture here now. Seems like 1 week after another. Keith Lee 2 weeks before. Feels like week after week, we're getting more of these names that are coming in right now. I know that the annoying, overly stated conversation is how much room is there for anybody to do anything. But do you think that there is space for a Cesaro over at AEW right now?
I don't want Cesaro in AEW. I do not want him in AEW. I think that AEW fans have reached the point of being spoiled. And what I mean by that is that if they are not getting some big surprise revelation, some new appearance by a random person each week, they're leaving like kind of disappointed. The show's great, but they're like, oh my God, nobody's surprise debuted. What I am more interested in is seeing people come into a program that is long-term with potential for growth and really being showcased rather than just popping up and disappearing, a la Jay Lethal, a la other people who've shown up and scarcely been seen again. So
I know. Yeah.
My concern is that would Cesaro be any better showcased in AEW than WWE? And I don't think that there's space on that card for that. I would love to see Cesaro go to an Impact and New Japan, and I would love to see him do National Wrestling Alliance. I think that that would be a phenomenal fit for him. There's a variety of places he can go and really gain some of that spotlight that he's looking for, perhaps not at the highest level, but you look at someone like a Matt Cardona who isn't on an WWE or an AEW, but it seems that the world is constantly talking about him because he's everywhere.
There's a difference with Matt and Cesaro. Matt is a cult of personality. Matt is a talker who knows exactly what his audience is. He sits around 12 hours a day, licking envelopes and sending out T-shirts and doing stickers. And I don't know the man.
Collecting championships and
whatever.
Having people all over the world talking about him. And
I just think it's different case with Cardona and Cesaro. I could be wrong. I remember seeing Cesaro at Ring of Honor shows back in the day as Claudio Castagnoli hiding behind the little curtains and being a fool. And I really liked Claudio, right? I've been very happy to see him, over a decade now doing what he's done over in WWE. But I think for him, it's more the Bryan Danielson thing. I think he wants the money. I do think the money is important, and I think he wants top caliber opponents he can put on great pro wrestling matches with. And I do think he winds up at AEW for that reason. And because of that, I think we see less Sonny Kiss, Joey Janela, Kip Sabian. Where was Darby Allin last night? Sammy Guevara. All of these people that Tony was able to pick up off the indies early on and turn into stars for the moment. I wonder if they're going to be stars for the long term, with the exception of a few. Obvious ones we'll get to.
To me, I think that the more I watch of AEW, the more I fall back into the reference I made long ago on this podcast, which is that Tony Khan and AEW is Tony Khan's toy box, and he's playing with real life action figures. And just like anybody, you go to the store and you get your new action figure and you want to play with it for 3 weeks. And then the next action figure comes out and then it takes precedence. And that is how a lot of this is, showing up on our television. It's like a child playing with real life people as if they were action figures.
And on that note, Zack Harry here would like to know if you want to manage Cesaro. That was a super.
Absolutely. I think that he's incredible. And with his in-ring talent and my ability to speak and draw heat from an audience, unstoppable force. I mean, come on now. I see nothing but good things. Besides the fact that Pollo Del Mar would look stunning next to Cesaro. He looks like the kind of guy who would give me the opportunity to dress as a Bond villain woman. I'm here for it.
What about Pollo Del Mar and Cesaro, right? You spell it C-Y-S, Saro. Is that good? Is that a funny joke or not?
Pollo Del Mar, and it would be C-I-S, Zaro.
Oh, C-I-S.
He's suspender, so like, okay, and then we could I could build a whole faction and we could get cisgender Mahal to come in later on.
This screams big gay brunch to me. So, or big straight brunch, however you want to do it, because it's cis.
Yeah, whatever.
So anyway, a lot of opportunity for Cesaro obviously out there right now. And by the way, I think a lot of people here really enjoyed that conversation that we just had. And some people here saying some matches they want to see. Dell at 13, Yas, give us Cesaro versus Sabian, please. Sure. What is the deal with Sabian? I don't think he's injured. He just sits around in a box now.
He's what you spoke of is really true. AEW brought in a tremendous amount of available for, to be contracted independent talents, great people who were looking for that big break. AEW offered that big break for the moment. And then instead of being developed so that they became these main eventers, they fell to the wayside as more and more people from WWE became available for contract. So, they had that indie buzz when AEW was looking to pick up people from the indies, but now they are playing with something entirely different. They're not looking to develop new stars per se. They're looking to capitalize on existing stars and showcase them in a way that the fans of those individuals have not seen from WWE.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about Cesaro in the mailbag and potential opponents. I feel like we're on that slippery slope right now. A couple other notes though, as far as like potential names we may see in AEW again or for the first time. Well, Jared Myers did an interview with Jeff Hardy where it didn't look like Jeff knew he was being recorded, but he did say, "I'm going to AEW. I'm so excited." Until this morning, I didn't really know. I'm so nervous and excited. Now he has since clarified on Twitter that very direct statement saying that it is just a goal of his to get to AEW. Of course, he can't legally sign with AEW, so hopefully that skirts whatever legal issue may have come up from this conversation that, again, I don't know Jeff knew that he was being recorded having. So there you
go. That's always sketchy to me when, like when people record things. This comes from years of beginning every single interview that I've pre-arranged with people by saying, just so you know, this conversation is being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think it's really problematic. It calls into a great deal of question. And there are times and places where, just for the record, for those who are listening to this, where it is entirely legal to record someone without their knowing. That is usually used when doing things like legal maneuvering or whatever. If you're trying to get somebody, like entrap somebody, as long as one party is aware that, like, I think the state of California is that, where as long as one party is aware that they're being recorded, then it makes it okay. But that's not generally used as a news source, because a news source, when you're having a conversation with a professional wrestler, should be pretty open and upfront, like, so as you don't get somebody to acknowledge something off the record, which you're then using on the record, which then gets them thrown out of a contract or something.
Right. And I think Jeff is definitely trying to maneuver this right now. WWE does not want heat with Jeff. AEW does not want heat with Jeff. I think Jeff will weather the storm. But look, this is just another reminder. Big name coming into AEW. And on that note, a big name looks to be staying with AEW. Fightful saying that Brian Cage had his 1-year option picked up by AEW, a move that surprised many within AEW, apparently, including the Swolverine himself, Brian Cage. Of course, Cage hasn't been used on TV in like 5 months. So maybe they just want to keep him under contract so he can't go elsewhere, talk. I don't know why.
So.
I don't know.
I would think so. I think that part of this is because, this is a scenario where Tony Khan recognizes he is a talent that could be well utilized somewhere else. We've seen great things from him with his stint with Lucha Underground, his time in Impact Wrestling, other places that have better utilized him. And Brian Cage, of course, that conversation we had about people coming into huge impact and then sort of just falling to the wayside. Brian Cage came in, won that Call Your Shot Battle Royal or whatever it was, and then got his one title shot, and Taz threw in the towel, and they barely did anything with him after that.
I think this is 100%. Tony Khan does not want another talent out there talking about how upset they were with creative and their booking and whatever else kind of things that upset them about just generally working at AEW. Maybe easier for him to just pick up the option, give another 12 months. And maybe at some point something changes where they do decide to use Brian Cage. But I think that it might have to do more with what I just described. And while we're talking Tony Khan, before we get to Dynamite from last night, he in a pre-Dynamite video said the following about his massive announcement that is forthcoming, noting he's under an NDA, totally can't say anything. And he said, it's not like the first dance where I can put a date and a time and a place on it and say that I know exactly when, but it is like the first dance and that I know something big and important is coming to AEW. I'm very excited about it. It's a little bit different than anything we've done before, but it's going to be awesome. Do you want to take a shot in the dark? Does this clarify anything for you about whatever TK could be talking about?
Not a clue. And, I just have to say that Tony Khan loves tooting his own horn about all these amazing things that are coming along. And again, I think that the more we talk about things, the more people probably are going to think I'm an AEW hater, which is the exact opposite of the truth. AEW is about the only product I consistently watch in terms of like Raw, SmackDown, and other. But the fact of the matter here is that he loves to talk a lot about this product. A lot.
Yeah. And hey, look, this seems to be working for him, right? He goes out, he shoots a firework off, he gets everybody's attention, he shoots more fireworks off, and then hands out some hot dogs at the end, right? Zack Harry here saying he's buying our Ring of Honor. I'm calling it. It just seems likely, just as likely as, I guess, anything else. Why not?
It does. And that would not necessarily be a horrible thing. They would, I think that it's very plausible that he's already bought the Ring of Honor library because he does want to build a kind of that library of content. So, and with so many of his top tier talents having come from Ring of Honor and having been Ring of Honor world champions, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, the list does go on. It would be possible if he did that that could become their second brand and some of the talent could go there.
It's an interesting side note too, is something I'd heard about potential negotiations about acquiring Ring of Honor. Well, first, I don't think that they would split the library from everything else, just because the library brings a lot of value to it, and without the library, you just got a couple rings, a logo, and maybe a few loose people that are still under contract. So the other thing, though, is I'm not totally certain that Sinclair Broadcasting wants to be out of the Ring of Honor business model. I think they see it as good content for their television series. I just don't think they want to be the one footing the bill for it. I had heard that if you were to acquire Ring of Honor, there would maybe be an opening there for you to also acquire the distribution that goes along with it in those stations that are in the Sinclair umbrella, with Tony looking for outlets for AEW Dark or AEW Dark Evolution. It's not YouTube, it's, syndicated broadcast networks, but, there's a door there for him as well to kind of pick up some more distribution. I think if the Ring of Honor deal were something that he were to consider. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, why not? It seems like I'm still not sure what the Sinclair Broadcasting Network looks like, and I've never really been able to find it. But nevertheless, it is television.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I always find it when I'm in a hotel. It's like I get to a hotel, it's like 10:30 at night, and they're like, Ring of Honor is on channel 64, and I'm what?
Anyway. Yeah, it's because of the fact that I do not believe that Sinclair has what I would consider top tier distribution locations, meaning like you're more likely to find it in a mid-sized town or something of that nature than you are the major metropolitan areas, which I think are flooded with other things. So I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on this, y'all.
I'll give Zack Harry the final word. Him buying ROH would give another TV deal, and ROH could be AEW's developmental brand that gives talent that aren't showcased on a weekly basis. So a fair point. All right, let's get to last night's Dynamite. So for a while, I thought this story was going to be our leadoff story, and then like a bunch of stuff happened. Last night, MJF stole everyone's hearts. He cut this very emotional promo, talked about bullying, his idolation of CM Punk. He wound up crying actual tears. His mom tweeted out that she's proud of him today. And of course, many fans and CM Punk, it would seem to think that maybe MJF just made all of this up to get everybody to bring their guard down for when he, chops off Punk's balls or something like that. I'm not really sure. What'd you think of the promo, Paul?
That promo made me feel wildly uncomfortable on a number of levels.
Okay.
Him repetitiously calling himself an ADD riddled Jew boy was like a cringe and a jolt through me every time he said it. More importantly, there are a couple ways to look at this. I think certainly that the idea that he's manipulating the emotions of the audience and a Punk to turn around and stab the knife in their back a little more deeply is probable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's for sure. I also think that, the turn here could be that all of those things are true, but that little boy who idolized him and et cetera, died at that point in time. It gives this very supervillain origin story, you know, where the person was not evil at one point, but you created this evil and now you're going to be destroyed as a result of it.
That's how what you just described there. That's how that felt more to me. Like I hadn't really been able to put a finger on it, but the origin story of a supervillain, that's more how this came across to me. But anyway,
right.
Go ahead.
I mean, the for those who are unfamiliar, for example, this can be done in many ways, but the first one that comes to mind is the original origin story of Lex Luthor, and that he idolized Superman. He became a scientist. He was in this this thing which happened, and then Superman came to save him, and in the process, somehow like literally by putting out this fire with his like whatever breath or whatever, froze off his hair and all of these things, and it like mentally tormented Lex Luthor, and that is an origin story for that character and why he is now an arch nemesis of the person he once loved. But at the same time as this, the problem that I have with all of this is that for me, a heel the magnitude of MJF should never at any point become sympathetic. When the audience is applauding him, when he is generally speaking getting booed out of the stadium, that was problematic to me. The evolution of this kind of character when it is not yet necessary, because there will be a time that you're going to need to do that because what he has been doing has become stale, but we're not there yet. That was problematic to me.
Yeah, I get the it's non-traditional for sure. Definitely left me sitting there going, why would you baby MJF ahead of this match with CM Punk? Because Punk certainly seemed like the bad guy to me at the end of that promo, but I'll be damned when Punk's music hit. Huge pop. Everybody was going nuts for Punk. I think Punk kind of questioning it, sowing doubt in people's minds about whether or not MJF was legit, was an interesting little turn. I just liked it. I just thought it was, I thought it was very emotional. I thought it was an unexpected thing. Surprise is always good. It was not a typical bad guy promo. And the guy actually cried. Like, how often do you see real genuine emotion like that in pro wrestling? Like, very, very rarely.
Wasn't genuine emotion. That's what makes him a heel.
He brought himself to tears. That's hard to do. You got to be thinking about something really sad to make that happen.
I did not. I mean, I feel that this story. I really do believe that there's a great deal of truth in it. I will tell you that I also did not like the fact that CM Punk showed that picture to begin with. You know, I felt that was very, very uncomfortable too. The picture from last week when he showed it. So, you know, I think that this is certainly a non-traditional story. And this, unlike certain stories in the past where I was like, this was a misfire from Go, this does have my interest to the point where I legitimately want to wait and see where this goes before I cast too much judgment. All I can speak on is my thoughts in the moment. It made me very uncomfortable. I did not like it.
All right. Well, we are very short on time, so I'll real quickly just say we talked about Buddy Matthews there. Moxley Danielson, that's official now after the main event. And yeah, Jericho and Kingston, they did this promo battle. A lot of inside sports entertainment references here, Paul. Were you a fan?
I did not like this either.
I feel like I'm teeing you up here today. I know how you felt about this. Yeah.
You know, like I would say this. I do want to go back and say that in terms of MJF, that I think it was well delivered. It made me uncomfortable, which of course, if you're trying to evoke emotions, discomfort is an emotion. So that's okay. But in terms of this particular confrontation, I expected so much more from Eddie. I expected so much more from Eddie Kingston. I felt Jericho did very, very well. I did think he tripped over some points of this, and he seemed to repeat some of the parts of his promo.
Yeah, it seemed a little by the
kind of like flubbed it and then like redid it. But I expected so much more. Eddie Kingston is so fast, and he's so with zingers and wit, and something felt missing from it.
I don't think Eddie likes Chris. I don't think Eddie likes Punk. Like, I think Tony Khan genuinely just pairs Eddie Kingston with people he doesn't like to see what naturally happens in the ring when these two guys get to go face to face. It seems to be the vibe I get off of Eddie's programs.
I mean, I certainly felt like Eddie Kingston conveyed very, very clearly his feelings for CM Punk.
Yeah.
And I do not get the vibe that anything was healed through the process of doing that.
No.
I feel very much like what we saw, and this is the blurring of reality and story, like fact and fiction. I felt like a lot of what Chris Jericho said during his promo was probably based in a significant amount of reality.
So,
if not how he saw it, certainly how Kingston saw it.
So is this a clout vampire moment, to coin a phrase from Effie there? Is this like Chris Jericho saw the buzz that Eddie Kingston's getting? I want to work with Eddie. Eddie genuinely doesn't seem to like him, kind of like the Punk thing. And much like Punk, in the end, it doesn't matter how much you don't like me or not, Eddie. You can say all the negative things you like about me and Vince McMahon. I'm still going to beat you. I'm still going to win. Do you think that's the end of this saga here?
I think that ultimately that I think that Kingston will defeat Jericho on March 6th.
I'm 50-50 on that one. I'm not positive. I don't know. I think
I would
Jericho might win here, especially. I don't know.
I would have also much preferred if there was a stipulation in this match. You know, this stems out of this whole thing with Santana and Ortiz. So why not, you know, sort of delineate where these, where they will end up falling in this picture? Like, you know, if Chris wins, then they stay with Inner Circle because that seems to have been forgotten entirely in 1 week. And if Kingston wins, you know, he wins their freedom. I don't know, but there would have been something more interesting there.
All right. Lastly here, before we get to the mailbag, I'll just throw it out real quick. It was just announced before we went live on the air, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's going to headline night 1 of WrestleMania, and I would guess that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns would headline night 2. So for once, the 2 Rumble winners are actually going to main event both nights of WrestleMania. Paul, what a crazy idea.
Yeah, well, wow, what a I'll just harken back to that triple threat match between Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda, which was a previous headliner, and that match was an absolute shit show. I hated everything about it pretty much. So, woo, come on, night 2.
All right. Well, hey, Paul, thank you for joining me at the top show to talk all the news today. Hey, very lively chat room here today. A lot of new people came into the room. We continue to encourage you to come back to the show Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern, right here on all of Wrestling Inc. social platforms. Of course, you go subscribe over on the podcast feed as well, Wrestling Inc. Daily. Give us a nice rating as well if you're over there. All right, real quickly here in the mailbag at Wink Daily, WINC Daily. That's the account to follow. Who do you most want to see Cesaro feud with in AEW? Danielson, Guevara, Hangman Page, or somebody else? About 120 votes here right now. 38.7 Danielson, 24.3 Guevara, 22.5 Hangman Page, and 14.4 for somebody else. If Cesaro did wind up in AEW, is there a particular dream match that you have over there, Paul?
You know, I'm not, again, I would much rather see Cesaro go to Impact. I would like to see that a lot. If he goes to AEW, I think that they're, off the bat, I have nobody specific that I would like to see him come in and feud with. I would like to see him come in and become established before he feuds with somebody. I would like to see him as a personality be established and redefined, and then let that determine who he feuds with.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we'll wrap it up there right now, everybody. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'm going to be joined. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday. I'll be joined by TK Trinidad. Yeah. Sorry. Been a week. Of course, support us over on iTunes, all the podcast platforms, sportwrestlinginc.com. Reminder, our Twitter handle is down right now. Got to go follow the new handle for the time being while we get it worked out with the Twitter Olympics gods at wrestling.com. That's the account to follow right now over on Twitter. And, of course, support the Wrestling Podcast. It goes down tomorrow night right back here after SmackDown. Paul, anything else you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a lot of people in the comments today asking, you know, regarding my role as a manager in the world of professional wrestling. You can find out all about that on my socials. The Glamazon PDM on Twitter, Pollo Del Mar Fans on Instagram. I want to give a shout out to Money, Power, Respect for becoming the new UGWA Tag Team Champions this past Sunday. It was awesome, sold out crowd here. And I'm very excited because I'm heading off to Los Angeles and then Las Vegas and Los Angeles this weekend. Catch me on LA Fights on GCW's YouTube channel, streaming live on Saturday.
All right. I'm at Nick_Houseman over on Twitter. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Remember, if you winked, you didn't miss